Hello, this is the Mystery Ham, here to talk about my Tecsun PL-330. If you're interested in a inexpensive and small shortwave radio that has single sideband capability, this is one you might want to check out. I recently purchased this several months ago. I've been using it every day, whether it is to listen to shortwave radio in the evenings or browse around on the amateur radio bands. It's very handy indeed. There are other models like this, similar, and yeah, I just say if you can get any radio with a single sideband, put them in your shopping cart. It's good to have. Some people say, oh, that car's going by, it's pretty loud. Some people say that the Baofeng UV5R is the gateway radio. But I think that shortwave radio was the gateway for me to get me interested into amateur radio. So with that being said, first thing you notice is this clock that's on there, which I have it set to UTC time, which is when I'm logging contacts, my HF contacts, and I want to know the time. I always have this set to UTC. I also usually carry my trusty little watch with me that it's a 24-hour clock that I set it to UTC, and that helps quite a bit too. So let's turn it on and hear what it sounds like. So right now I scanned through all of the shortwave bands. And if you want to scan through all the shortwave bands and have the radio store stations automatically, you press and hold the left arrow. And I did that. It takes several minutes, and I just didn't want to include it. But it scans through, and it saves all the audible stations into memory. And when you turn the dial, you can see here in the upper left the number, the memory slot that it's in. So as I go through, it just goes through the bands. Now, if I was in a particular shortwave band and I just wanted to scan that section, you'd press and hold the right arrow. So that's what I do. I turn it on, I scan through the bands, and I just kind of see what's out there. And now if you want to go to AM, which I do quite a bit, just hit the AM button. And if you wanted to scan through the AM bands, you just press and hold the medium wave / long wave button. Press and hold it, and it'll scan through and do a similar thing where it stores all the stations, the activity, into a memory slot. And FM as well. You hit FM, and you can enter in your frequency or press and hold, and it'll scan through FM. Simple as that. So that is shortwave. That's what I do for shortwave. Now there's a lot more settings and things that other channels have gone into. This is not going into a full list of what this radio can do. I'm just showing how I use it every day and what I like about it. So most of the time, if I'm not listening to shortwave in the evenings, I will use it to browse the amateur radio bands. So to do that, I would select lower sideband or upper sideband. So lower sideband is used for certain parts of the amateur radio spectrum, and upper sideband is for the upper part of the section. And so right now, 10 meters is, there's a lot of activity on 10 meters because there is a 10 meter contest. I think it is the ARRL 10 meter contest. So let's hit upper sideband, and it's thinking. Now we're at 10 meters. Let's see if anything comes in. Okay, so there's a station there.
Thank you, Whiskey Yankee 7, Foxtrot Delta, Victor. 7, Foxtrot Delta, go ahead.
So right now, this station is in Wyoming, and I am located on the East Coast. So that's a nice long trip. So this person's on 10 meters, he's in the contest, and he's making as many contacts as he can. Now keep in mind, over here, I have this plugged into an external in-fed half-wave antenna. But the included antenna, the telescoping one, works quite well, especially if you're outside. So it does good, but it's not going to compare to the in-fed half-wave. But let's turn it up and let's unplug the external antenna and see if we can still hear that 10-meter station with the telescoping antenna.
Foxtrot Delta. Pick your contest, Whiskey Yankee 7, Foxtrot Delta.
Now I'm going to unplug the external and we're going to be listening to the telescope.
Alpha Charlie 8. Alpha Charlie 8, Sierra India 59 Wyoming. Thank you, Whiskey Yankee 7, Foxtrot Delta.
So you can see now I'm inside using just the telescoping antenna, and we can still copy an amateur radio operator in Wyoming. So that is pretty cool that this radio is that capable, and receive with the antenna, just everything you just get in the box allows you to hear. So I'm going to plug the antenna back in.
Okay, the number again, my number again.
Now you can hear, if you listen carefully, you can hear a slight little chirpy chirp on the side. What that is, there's a station next to it, and it's bleeding over. And to cut that out, we can use the bandwidth filter here, and I'll show you what I mean. Let me turn it up, see if we can hear that chirping sound. There it goes.
Roger, thanks for Virginia, 73, good luck, Whiskey Yankee 7, Foxtrot Delta.
Now I'm going to hit the filter, and I'm going to narrow the filter.
Thanks, Whiskey Yankee 7, Foxtrot Delta.
Now it squashes the audio of the station we're trying to listen to, but it cuts out the stuff on the sides. It just shrinks the bandwidth and cuts out interference.
Thank you, Whiskey Yankee 7, Foxtrot Delta.
And I can't hear the chirping anymore. But let's
Kilo Bravo 3, Alpha India 59 Wyoming. Thank you, Whiskey Yankee 7, Foxtrot.
Now I opened it back up. So okay, so that's 10 meters. Let's go to 40 meters. 40 meters is usually good to hear something around the clock. But 40 meters is lower sideband. And that's something you just get to know as you progress through your shortwave listening and your amateur radio. When you first start out in amateur radio, you learn things like that pretty quickly. So I'm at lower sideband. I'm going to go to the phone portion of the 40 meter band. Now as I tune, watch, it's going one at a time. And that can be quite slow. So I can hit the step button here, and it'll go, instead of one at a time, it goes 5 at a time. There we go, we got a station.
We get a 592, a beautiful signal, go ahead. Okay, very good, very good. You sound really wonderful from Ohio, Joe. Nice signal coming from your show.
Now that signal's coming in pretty good, but it does sound a little unnatural, a little wobbly. And one thing good about this radio is you can fine tune it and calibrate it. So we'll try to do that. So here's our step button, and you can see this little arrow over the 5 is going to jump over here to the 0. And as I listen, I'm going to turn the fine tuning knob.
Interfering with so many squirrels in the area that it was creating problems. Go ahead. Yeah, perfectly understandable, Joe.
Okay, That sounds a little more natural. So if I want to save that and calibrate it, I'll push and hold the lower sideband button. I don't think it matters which sideband button, but since I'm in lower sideband, I'm going to press and hold the lower sideband button.
I'm using the RE
Okay.
320.
Now it's calibrated, now I can turn it up.
Very good. Sounds wonderful. Nice enough. I'm using the V104.
And it's a little clearer. Let's try to find another station.
We're on the south side of Nashville, and there wasn't much over here. The electricity flickered a little bit, but it wasn't too bad.
So that station's coming in pretty good.
You know, reports of other places around the area.
Now, a thing with the calibration button, when you use the fine tuning, calibrate it in, press and hold the sideband button, and get it to calibrate. One thing I've noticed, if you're on one end of the band and you calibrate it, and then you go to the other end of the band, it's off a little bit. So, no big deal, you just calibrate it again. Or you can go somewhere into the middle of the band, calibrate it, and it should be good across that particular band. I also noticed once I have it calibrated for that band, if I go to say 40 meters or 10 meters, you'll have to calibrate it again. So you're calibrating quite a bit, but it doesn't bother me because it feels like I'm actually operating the radio. It makes it feel like I'm actually have something to do with how the signal sounds. So let's go and see if we can find a CW station. So we're going to stay in lower sideband and we're going to go to the CW portion of the 40 meter band. Let's see, so somewhere around there. Let's get some volume on that bad boy. Not hearing anything yet. Okay, so there we go. Now, if we want to fine tune, or let's say there's another station really close to this one, we can hit the step button and go over to the, I guess 10 kilohertz, I believe. I could be wrong. I'm going to sound like a real dumb if I get that wrong, but that's okay. Let's just call it the second zero. So that I can fine tune it. Now if I press it again, you'll notice the arrow on the 0 skips the 9 and goes to the 4. Watch. It skips the 9, jumps over what's a 5 now. It misses that, I guess 1 kilohertz spot. Like I said, if I got that wrong, you guys are going to fry me in the comments. That's fine. But that's the only thing I don't like about this, is that I wish the arrow would go over the 9 and I could fine tune that spot, because that's really helpful in CW. So I can only go in these 1 megahertz steps or over to the 10, I believe. Okay, let's go back over to the step button. He's fading on me. Now let's see if we can find another person. There we go. Now, if we wanted to zero in on the station a little better, you'd hit the bandwidth and then you can adjust the bandwidth. Now it stays on this bandwidth until you hit this button again. So if you want to adjust the volume, you have to get out of that mode and turn it up. Alright, so I'm going to open it back wider. Oop. Alright, so that's it for picking out CW stations. And that, in a nutshell, is what I use it for. I listen to normal radio, AM, FM, shortwave stations, and I like to scan the bands for amateur radio operators. Like I said, I think this is a gateway radio to amateur radio, better than the Baofeng, even though every technician just about buys a Baofeng or something similar, and they use it for 2 meter, 70 centimeter, which is a part of the frequency that this doesn't cover. But this lets you really get into the changing modes, and using large swaths of the frequency spectrum, and really explore in that regard, and to see what's out there. It's pretty neat. This doesn't do airband. And also, one thing I wanted to note was there was one YouTuber who I'm a big fan of. I believe his name is Toddlebert, and I watched many of his videos. Great channel. But he, on his version, and his big complaint on this radio was this step button was recessed. And I use the step button a lot. And he said it's kind of a pain to dig your fingernail in and to hit that step button. But like I said, I got this radio about 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, I guess. And this version, the step button is raised. It's not recessed. So that is a good thing. So I'm really glad. I didn't know it was going to be that. I was willing to accept the recessed step button. But to find out that it is, in fact, raised and easier to press, which is good. I thought there was another thing that he mentioned, but no, we'll leave it at that. I guess I also want to compare the battery to this one. I have a very simple analog, a little smaller than this. It's just a dial. There's no buttons or electronics in there, and it runs off of 2 AA batteries. Now this has a different battery, and I'm sure you're aware by now, but let me just show you. It's one of these types, which I like it because I like to be able to plug it in. Oh, I remember what I was getting ready to say. That to charge the battery, there used to be a USB, but now a regular USB mini or something, but now it is a USB-C. So those are the two big differences from the previous reviews I've saw on this radio, was that these current models, at least as a few months ago, they have the raised set button, so someone in the company must have been listening, and they have a USB-C charging. So, but that's all I wanted to do, just show you not the ins and outs of this radio, but just what I like about, take that back, how I use it every day. When I turn it on, my go-to settings, it does have, you can store different memories to your favorite stations. I don't use any of that stuff. If I want to listen to shortwave, I just turn it on, scan through everything, and scroll, see what's out there. If I want to do amateur radio, I just flip on upper or lower sideband, go to the band, tune in the station, and listen. So that's about it. So I do recommend this to really anybody that's interested in having a radio for an emergency, or if you're just kind of want to dip your toe into shortwave listening and or amateur radio. So this is the Mystery Ham 7.3.